Hi there! If you're new to my sessions, here are the key takeaways you can expect. I'll cover the Wyckoff stages for Worldcoin in both the weekly and daily time frames, and then key price levels that Worldcoin will find resistance or support, and any breakout timing the charts are indicating to us. So let's start with the weekly time frame. So we had a sign of strength happened during early mid-September. That sign of strength, and then eventually it came down for another test, and we were stabilizing after the test. Not that everything is over, because after a test there can be subsequent tests or even something deeper than the selling climax. We call a spring in Wyckoff terminology. This did not close at that level, so we don't really, at least me, doesn't really consider that a spring. Okay, just to quickly adjust the height so they align. Alright, so if the price comes down through the red key level of 77 cents again, just like what happened in March, late March, early April time this year, we can expect the spring would end up somewhere between the yellow dashed line and the red key level. Okay, just extending this and make sure I haven't moved it, tilted it. So the previous breakout happened and we don't need these two lines anymore. When we get to the daily chart, we'll draw new lines and see whether there are any breakout timing. As of now, this may still be an uptrend that's going on. Just to briefly draw a box. It's not a very crazy slope, I know. The rate of rise isn't very crazy, but still, you see higher lows, even though the previous twos are pretty flat with the current one we have. Just to give us a context, that it seems Worldcoin is still having some positive moves compared to some other altcoins. Quickly check the Bollinger Band corner squeeze. For Worldcoin, a squeeze is also happening, and I would consider that started somewhere in July actually, when it first get into this horizontal narrow range trading. So when that happens, that means the price will get into a bigger swing coming forward. Not that it has during this period. That's close enough I consider a squeeze. That's why we have that swing afterwards. So if you're new to this indicator, the price can swing to the downside first as well before it comes back up. So when you use this indicator, remember it doesn't indicate the direction of the swing to start with, but it helps us to understand that force is being built up and a bigger swing is on the way. Let's get to the daily. Just a quick check. The purple lines are getting pretty close to the orange for the same indicator, and that means a squeeze in the daily time frame is also getting close. So last time, 2 times this year, in July and then eventually late August, early September, we've got 2 different magnitude of swings after the squeeze. So this time it swing to the downside before it swing up. Alright, how about Wyckoff in the daily? After all these stages, let's remove this. All these has happened. So interestingly, whenever I put in these tags and come back, a lot of them has really happened. So Wyckoff still works after that many decades. So that was an LPSY over there. This one is here actually. And also, I would just make it simple. And where's my IPS? Not the PlayStation, but the preliminary support. The spirit and the selling climax. And then automatic rally. And then second test. And a subsequent test. You may call that a spring, but for now, because that's really close to where the second test was, I just call that a test. And there may be a spring really getting below the red level. You see where that was, right? That was the spring of that time during April. Not too far, just half a year ago. I'm just checking this yellow line. I want to duplicate this and make it over here so we know where the last spring was. If we enlarge the chart, we don't have to go back to the left. So, time point. Just move these downwards. It seems there's still a lower low situation going on across these three candlesticks, the white and the two reds. Okay, I just want to enlarge it so if you're watching on a mobile phone, you should be able to see these. And instead of the line, you know I like to draw channel boxes. That's where the prices are going to bounce between the two long edges. Okay, this one went a bit deeper. So that I just adjust this slightly. Just to cover the both this wick and this wick. And if I turn it to a line chart, you see what's going on. Alright? It's basically bouncing within the box between the two lines and also one center line of the box. Here, the line doesn't have to cut the box into exactly 50%. You see the lower half is larger than the upper half in this case, and that's fine. The key is to have the line cutting across like wicks at the bottom, or the head, the wick, the head, and another head, and another head, and another tail. The line should cut through another tail here. Most head and tails among all these levels. So this has 8 points over there. So that's why I put the line over there. If you move it somewhere else, it's not going to cut through the same level of points. Sometimes you may find one that may cut through similar, maybe 6 versus 7, or if you find one that's exactly cutting across the same number of reference points, you just have to pick one that's close enough, because it's not going to get too far anyway. And you can see the line, besides bouncing between the two edges, it will sometimes trade along or get bounces from the center line as well. So that's why we have to draw this line, because that would be somewhere that triggers your stop loss. If you enter at this point and then waiting for it to go up, just that it comes down and trigger your stop loss, and you won't be caught off guard or like being in surprise, basically, because you know that can happen. Alright, Worldcoin, we are waiting in terms of Wyckoff for a sign of strength to happen. Best if it comes to a similar level as the automatic rally, around $1.05. Yeah. So there is, I'm trying to bring this line up here. So you see, it's actually, you see where I brought it from below, right? Not that I've drawn this previously, but when we look across, it's very interesting that all these candlesticks ends around that point including the automatic reaction over here back in May from the upthrust, and also the sign of weakness also around that level. These two guys are lower. It's more of the PSY period where there were frequent trading activities at those points, and then eventually we get to this point over here, that where the automatic rally stopped and then returned to where the selling climax was. So it's very interesting to observe these kind of behaviors, that the bounces actually stop at where the previous references were. So we're expecting a sign of strength to reappear before the next distribution cycle happens. In the daily chart, we just finished one very recently, so having another one in such a short period of time is not impossible, but we have to have some good news coming. Maybe, like I shared in the other sessions, the trade talks and all that got another got some other green lights, then that's when the price shoots up, much like what happened here. Okay, in May, actually late April, it's similar macro situation. The trade talks have some silver lining, and then it shot up just to come down, consolidate, and then during July it shot up, and then now we have like after the September climb, we have a similar situation coming down for another short accumulation, and maybe when those wars and trade talks finally get settled, that's the next distribution cycle will happen. So the shortest among the last two during the mid-June period, from the start of the accumulation to the end of the accumulation, it lasted only for 26 days. Right now, if we count from, let's say, this point to where we are now, we're 18 days. So just 1 week or less compared to what happened back in June. This time, over here in July, that lasted a little longer, but still just over a month. So if it really happened, like if the pattern really repeats every other month, like it accumulates and then shoot up for a month, yeah, it kept doing that over the past couple of months. Just this cycle was a bit longer during April to late April to end of May. Not that it lasted for way longer. It's only between the difference is only like 45 days versus roughly 40 days. So 30 to 35 days of accumulation in exchange for a 40 to 45 days distribution. This has repeated for a couple of times in the past half year. So that's the situation for Worldcoin, and let's hope for the next sign of strength to come, and then eventually a leg upwards towards the new distribution. Thanks for joining me today. See you later.